HazMat Endorsement Test Questions and Answers 2023-2024 Verified Answers. There are three lists that drivers, shippers, and carriers use to find out if a material is regulated as hazardous. Which one of their choices is not one of those three lists? A dangerous materials list. Drivers of placarded vehicles transporting hazardous materials must stop _________ to ______ feet from the nearest rail of a railroad. 15 to 20 feet. How many identical placards is a vehicle hauling hazardous materials required to display and where? For 4, 1 on the front, 1 on the back, and 1 on each side of the vehicle. How many different type placards are there showing specifications? 31. At what time is it required for the driver to have an approved gas mask on hand? Any vehicle carrying chlorine. What is the shape and size of a placard? 10 3/4 inch square or diamond. It is recommended that when hauling a load of explosives A or B to use the fusses instead of the warning triangles if in an emergency or breakdown situation. False. Whenever your vehicle is placarded, do not drive near open fires unless you can safely pass the fire without stopping. If you are in an accident involving hazardous materials, should keep all people far away and upwind of the accident. The hazardous waste manifest should be tabbed differently and kept on top of all other paperwork. If a materials class is the word forbidden, what kinds of materials are you still allowed to haul? Nothing. You can't haul a forbidden cargo. The driver must also carry on his person at all times a dated certificate signed by the employer. This certificate must also be updated every 2 years. Cylinders containing compressed gases may only be loaded onto a vehicle without a flat floor or platform if the cylinders are in boxes that will keep them from turning over. Loaded into racks attached to the vehicle, loaded in an upright or horizontal position. What type fire extinguisher is required in the power unit of a placarded vehicle? A UL rating of 10B, C or above. Who is responsible for packaging, labeling, and preparing the hazardous material shipping papers for a common carrier? The shipper. If hazardous material is spilling from your vehicle, do not move your vehicle any more than safety required. Animals and human foodstuffs should not be loaded in the same vehicle with poisons. The transport index of a radioactive material tells the degree of control needed during transportation. Class A explosives must not be transported in a combination vehicle if the vehicle includes a placarded cargo tank. Which of the following must drivers have in their possession while transporting Class A or B explosives? The written route plan. Which of the following is the proper definition of a cargo tank? A bulk container permanently attached to a vehicle. What placard must be used with an inhalation hazard load? Poison. A safe haven is one place you can leave a vehicle unattended that is hauling explosives. What is the best description of a safe haven? Any property that has been government approved for this use. Which of the following is one of the three keys to identify which placard to use? Materials, hazard class, and amount being shipped. When is it necessary to ground the trailer? When filling or unloading any flammable liquid tank, ground must be maintained until filling hole is properly closed. You may not park a vehicle carrying hazardous materials within _______ feet of an open fire. 300. With most hazardous materials, you may park within 5 feet of the road briefly, if your work requires it. The materials that are the exception and do not allow parking this close to the road are explosives A and B. You do not have a hazardous materials endorsement on your commercial driver license. When can you legally haul hazardous materials? Never. The basic description of a hazardous material includes the hazard class, the ID number, and the proper shipping name. Which one must appear first on the shipping paper? The proper shipping name. When fueling a placarded vehicle, someone must always be at the nozzle, controlling the fuel flow. A driver that hauls hazardous materials must attend training every 2 years. NAW. The first column of the hazardous materials table means this material is only restricted when shipped by air and/or water. How many different hazard classes are there? 9. When a substance in the materials table is written in italics, it means it is not the proper shipping name. Those in Roman type above it are column 1 symbols. The I means International Trentantos. When hauling explosives 1.1 and 1.3, which placard do you use? Explosives 1.1. When a spill occurs of NRQ substance, the carrier has within _____ to report the spill. 15 days. Column 1 symbols the plus sign means that proper shipping name without regard whether the material meets the definition of that class. You have loaded a hazardous material into a cargo tank. What must you do before you move the vehicle? Close all manholes and valves. Be sure they are free of leaks. A properly prepared uniform hazardous waste manifest must be signed and carried by anyone transporting a hazardous waste. One of these shipping paper descriptions for a hazardous material is in the right order. Which one is it? Hydrogen bromide, non-flammable gas, UN 1048. A placard is required for a combustible liquid at more than 110 gallons. To find out if a shipment includes a hazardous material, you should look at the shipping papers. When there is a hazardous materials emergency, you should prevent smoking and keep open flames away, and keep people away and warn them of the danger. Which signals may be used to warn of a stopped vehicle that contains explosives? Reflective triangles. Column 1 symbols the D sign means domestic transportation. A hazard class name or ID number may not be used to describe a non-hazardous material. When hauling hazardous materials, you must stop your vehicle and check any dual tires at least once every ____, whichever is less, 2 hours or 100 miles. If there is an RQ before or after the item description on the shipping paper, it means the carrier must report any spill of this material. Carriers must give each driver who transports Class A or B explosives a copy of FMCSR Part 397. A railroad crossing is ahead of you and you are hauling hazardous material. When you stop for the crossing, you can stop as far away as ______ feet from the nearest rail. 50. Who is responsible for safely transporting a hazardous material shipment without delay and keeping the shipping papers in the right place? The driver. You find an overheated tire during an en route inspection. If you are hauling hazardous materials, you must remove the tire and place it a safe distance from the vehicle. The intent of hazardous materials regulations is to ensure safety, to contain the material, and to communicate the risk. The total transport index of all radioactive material packages in a single vehicle must not exceed ____50. You are going to be hauling hazardous materials over a route you do not know well. When should you check the route and get the permits needed for that trip? Before starting the trip. Which 3 hazard classes should not be loaded into a trailer that has a heater air conditioner unit? Flammable liquids, flammable gas, and explosives. What is the only exception to certification by a shipper? When the shipper is a private carrier of his own product. A truck carrying explosives has crashed with another vehicle. You should not pull them apart until the explosives have been placed at least 200 feet away from the vehicles and occupied buildings. When handling packages of explosives, you must never use hooks or other metal tools. Which of the following choices is a hazard class you are not allowed to smoke around? Oxidizers, flammables, and explosives. Who is responsible for finding out what permits or special routes you will need to haul hazardous materials? The driver. If an X or RQ is in the HM column of a shipping paper entry, the shipment is regulated by hazardous material regulations. Which of the following, if required, must the shipper put on the package? The required label, the hazardous materials shipping name and identification number, and the name and address of shipper or consignee. You are hauling hazardous materials and you find that one of your tires is leaking. You must stop it, the nearest safe place, and fix it. Shipping papers must always be kept in one place when driving with hazardous materials. Wear when wearing your seatbelt, within reach at all times, and in a pouch on the driver's door. A vehicle contains 500 pounds each of explosives A and B. You must explosive as a placards. Who is responsible for checking to be sure the shipper correctly named, labeled, and marked a hazardous materials shipment? The carrier. The shippers package hazardous materials. They must certify that this was done according to the regulations. The only exception is when the shipper is a private carrier carrying his or her own product. There are 3 lists that drivers, shippers, and carriers use to find out if a material is a regulated product. Which of the following is one of them? List of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. A vehicle placarded for hazardous materials is required to have placards on how many sides of the vehicle? 4. A hazard class name or ID number may not be used to describe a non-hazardous material. The intention of the hazardous materials regulations are to ensure safe drivers and equipment, to communicate the risk, and to contain the material. If and X or NRQ is written or typed into the HM column of a shipping paper entry, the shipment is regulated by the hazardous materials regulations. Who do the regulations say is responsible for packaging, labeling and preparing the hazardous material shipping papers for shipment? The shipper. The power unit of a placarded vehicle must have a fire extinguisher with a UL rating of ________B, C, or more. 10. When hauling hazardous materials, you must stop your vehicle and check any dual tires at least once every 2 hours or 80 miles. During a hazardous materials emergency, you must use every available means to A. Keep people away. B. Prevent smoking and keep open flame away. C. Warn others of the danger. D. All of the above. If you're transporting Division 1.1 or 1.2 explosives, you must not transport them in vehicle combinations if there is a placarded cargo tank in the combination in order to transport hazardous material which require placards, must have CDL, must pass written test on hazardous material, must have HazMat endorsement. In column 1 the plus sign means the proper shipping name. Who needs to check that the shipper correctly named and labeled and marked HazMat? The driver. Which of the following is proper definition of cargo tank? Bulk container permanently attached to a vehicle. List that isn't used to find out if a material is regulated hazardous. EPA dangerous materials list. Placard loads require what fire extinguisher rating? 10B, C or more. When carrying HazMat you must stop and check tires once every 2 hours or 100 miles. Tankers used to transport HazMat must be marked with HazMat ID number of product. Driver must carry at all times dated certificate signed by employer updated every 2 years. Hazardous material will be named on HazMat tables list and HazMat substances and reportable quantities. What is the shape and size of a placard? 10 3/4 inch square or diamond. Can't park HazMat vehicle within how many feet of a fire? 300 feet. Hazardous materials that don't allow you to park within 5 feet of road. Explosives A and B. A placard vehicle must have at least how many placards? 4. If hauling HazMat and you have a leaking tire you must stop at safe place and repair. When fueling a placard vehicle someone must always be at the nozzle controlling the flow. What type of extinguisher is required in the power unit of a placard vehicle? UI rating of 10B, C or above. HazMat class name or ID number may not be used to describe a non-hazardous material. After a HazMat accident you should first send someone for help and warn others. A placard on the trailer is intended to communicate risk or HazMat. How many identical placards is a vehicle hauling HazMat required to display and wear? 4. 1 on front and back and 1 on each side. The basic shipment of a HazMat product must include proper shipping name, HazMat class and ID number. If X or RQ is in the HM column of a shipping paper entry the shipment is regulated by HazMat regulations. What placard must be used with inhalation HazMat load? Poison. Which of the statements about radioactive labels is true? Yellow 3 indicates the highest level of radioactivity. When transporting HazMat and non-HazMat your bills must describe HazMat first, HazMat highlighted. ID materials by X or RQ in HM column. On the HazMat table column 1 shows to what shipping mode the information on the line applies. If the HazMat is classified as forbidden you should refuse the load. The HazMat waste manifest should be tabbed differently and kept on top of all other paperwork. You should never transport a package labeled poison if you are hauling food products. When a spill of NRQ happens the carrier has how long to report spill? 30 days. Cylinders containing compressed gases may only be loaded onto a vehicle without a flat floor or platform if cylinders are in boxes that will keep them from turning over. Loaded into racks attached to vehicle. Loaded in an upright or horizontal position. If load requires placard, what must shipper put on package? The required label. The HazMat shipping name and ID number. Name and address of shipper or consignee. It is acceptable to use placard with dangerous if you load less than 5,000 pounds or specified materials at one place. You have two or more specified materials which total more than 1,000 pounds. Responsible for packaging, labeling and preparing hazmat shipping paper is the shipper. What is a false statement about loading and unloading cargo tanks? The person in attendance must be within 50 feet of the tanker. How many different hazard classes are there? 9. Materials class listed forbidden. So what kinds of materials are you allowed to haul? You can't haul forbidden cargo and nothing. Hazard class that you are not allowed to smoke around. Oxidizers, flammables, explosives. A hazard class name or ID number may not be used to describe what? Non-hazmat materials. A safe haven is defined as what? A government-approved place for parking vehicles loaded with explosives. When transporting explosives, flammable liquid or flammable gas, you may not use cargo heaters. Tankers used to transport hazmat on vehicles must be marked with the hazmat ID number of product. When should the placards be placed on a vehicle? Before you drive it. RQ identifies what? Report Blekwandi. Placard vehicles must stop how far from railroads? 15 to 50 feet. A placard must be 3 inches away from any other markings. Entries in hazmat materials table are shown in alphabetical order by proper shipping. Drivers must have what in their possession while transporting Class A or B explosives? The written route plan. When transporting Class A or B explosives, carriers must give each driver what? A copy of FMCSR Part 397. Product ID markings on a tank must be black for numbers on orange panels. Driver that hauls hazmat must attend training when? Every 3 years. What appears first on hazmat shipping paper? The identification number. The shipper must attach a diamond-shaped label to hazmat by putting label on package, putting label on tag attached to product, putting a label on product. When transporting hazmat waste, you must have the word waste before the name on bills. Sign a uniform hazmat waste manifest. Carry a uniform hazmat waste manifest. When a substance in the materials table is written in italics, it means it's not the proper shipping name. Only those in regular type are proper. A vehicle placard for Division 1.1, 1.2 or 1.3 explosives may be left unattended in a safe haven. Product ID numbers must appear on each side and both ends of a tank containing what? Hazmat exceeding 1,000 gallons. Which signals may be used to warn of stopped vehicles that contain explosives? Flares or fusees, reflective triangles. Signal fires. Radioactive 2 and radioactive 3 are located from people and cargo space walls by referring to the transport index and the separation distances tables. Whenever your vehicle is placarded, do not drive near open fires unless you what? Can safely pass the fire without stopping. Anna, W in the first column of hazmat table means this material is only restricted when shipped by air and or water. Shipping papers must always be kept where when behind the wheel and seat belt on, within reach at all times. In pouch on driver's door. On the hazmat table, column 1 shows to what shipping mode the information on that line appears. You must have placards for explosives, poison gas or flammables exceeding what? Any amount. If the words inhalation hazard appear on the shipping papers, you need placard designating a poison.